Once upon a time, a bunch of friends embarked on a tiny gargantuan project, Foxymoron, isn't it? A vocational avocation, if you will, to start a digital agency of their own. A bit of business, a bit of fun, and large amounts of crazy. And it snowballed into one of India's biggest digital outfits with a quirky name, Foxymoron. Hello and welcome to the Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com. I am your host and friend Pavan Chawla, and of course, no guesses. Today, I have with me two co-founders and custodians of the wonderful Foxymoron digital marketing agency that grew out of. Well, for that, let me invite two wonderful visionary young digital entrepreneurs, Suveer Bajaj and Pratik Gupta of Foxymoron, to our latest episode. Suveer, welcome to the Master's Voice.
Thank you so much for having us, Pavan. This is Suveer from Foxymoron. Very, very glad to be here with you today.
Thank you, Suveer. Welcome. Pratik, you want to say hi to the listeners?
Hi, Pavan. So glad to be doing this. We're really excited, and hi to everybody who's tuning in.
Thank you so much, Suveer, Pratik. So let me quickly tell you about Suveer Bajaj, co-founder of Foxymoron. As a co-founder of Foxymoron, Suveer's responsibilities include spearheading the high growth and investment verticals of the organization, such as the media practice, data analytics, and long-form content production. Suveer has been actively building the organization through strategic alliances and corporate development initiatives. A management graduate from Mumbai University, Suveer also possesses a degree in law and spends his free time either underwater or way above skiing the mountains. It's under his leadership that Foxymoron has consistently been one of the top-ranked agencies in the country and has also won the Social Media Agency of the Year 2019 award by AgencyCon Indian Agency Awards and Summit, and the most awarded agency at the SAMMY 2018, among others. So that's Suveer Bajaj for you. And next up, another co-founder, Pratik Gupta of Foxymoron. Pratik started Foxymoron at the age of 19 along with Suveer and his other partners, and today it's just the two of them who've been shepherding Foxymoron for a very long time. Foxymoron stands as one of the leading independent digital products and services agency. Pratik's current role at Foxymoron includes looking after new business acquisition and effective servicing across the various verticals at Foxymoron. He also works on strategic initiatives at the board level on investment areas that result in the growth of the business via alliances or building standalone verticals. And before Foxymoron, he worked at Bajaj Telephones Private Limited as a business development executive, creating new concepts of potential business opportunities. It's under his leadership that Foxymoron has consistently been one of the top-ranked agencies in the country and has also won the Social Media Agency of the Year 2019 award by Agency India Agency Awards and Summit, and Most Awarded Agency at the SAMMY 2018, amongst many others. Pratik has also been an integral speaker at noted institutes like London School of Economics, Students' Union, India Forum 2016, IIDE, and Wellington Institute of Management. And Foxymoron, as we know, is a leading independent digital products and services agency founded in 2008, building future-ready brands on digital through an integration of content, technology, and media using data-backed tools and practices. With teams across Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, NCR, and Dubai, the highly awarded agency has built several sustainable partnerships with L'Oreal Group, Netflix, Colgate, Amazon India, Burger King, IKEA, DS Group, SanDisk, Ather, OBL Tiles, Blackberries Menswear, Hershey's Group, Manyavar, ABC India, Turner International, and DAMAC. So that was a brief introduction of Suveer Bajaj and Pratik Gupta, founders of the wonderful agency Foxymoron. My listeners will be wondering, why such young professionals on the Master's Voice? I mean, with due respect to you, I have featured the wonderful, legendary Pandit Jasrajji also on this. There's been, I'm sure you're and our dear friend Anand Bhatkamkar, CEO of Dentsu Ages Network. So why two young entrepreneurs? Why? Because these two young entrepreneurs, I must tell my listeners, and I'm sure they are aware and are probably inspired by Foxymoron's history, that these two youngsters have done phenomenal work. They were an original group of four who set up Foxymoron, but for the largest part of its wonderful existence, they've been chaperoning, shepherding, driving Foxymoron to amazing heights. And the kind of achievement that they have really registered for themselves with Foxymoron is something that many have probably not been able to. So very happy and proud to include you in the master's voice, Suveer Pratik. There were 4 of you about to go on a holiday, wasn't it? Way back in, what was it, early 2000s to Goa with some 64,000 rupees as the holiday kitty, right? But instead, you decided that 64,000 was a big amount, let's not waste it, but use it as seed capital. How did that roll out? How was Foxymoron born, the company, and the name? I love the name. Walk me through the early days, from 4 partners to employees and growth. Suveer, you want to take that?
Sure, absolutely, Pavan. Thanks for the question. It was actually late 2000s. It wasn't early 2000s. It was the summer of 2008. And we had just actually finished the second year of college. We were all still in undergrad school at the time. And we'd done a bunch of internships prior to building up to this summer. And I remember Pratik had just turned 20 that February. I was 19 that March. And, we were twiddling our thumbs wondering what to do in the summer and done a bunch of internships. Pratik was at Bajaj the year before that. I was at Express the year before that, and a bunch of places before that. And well, the internship experience, for lack of a better word, wasn't very fruitful. It didn't teach us too much. And of course, as young kids, 19 and 20, we did want to spend some time over the holidays just having fun. And that's where, the Goa angle kind of comes from. And of course, we had to do an internship because we were part of the BMS program that requires you to do a compulsory internship. And, one day this was back in the day of, LimeWire and, all the days we used to exchange media via pen drives, music and movies. And I remember one day we were sitting at my house and a bunch of us, just got pen drives to exchange music and movies because there was no data and streaming and the way it is now. And we were just discussing, what are we really doing for the summer from an internship perspective. And I remember I was planning to help a friend's dad who had just started a not-for-profit library with some branding and advertising work. Pratik was helping a friend of his friend back then start a dance school. Now, of course, his wife, who was trying to, start a dance school. Another friend of ours was working on a website that involved a little bit of corporate interface. And, we said, hey, I could do with some help on, the library branding front with a website. And, Pratik said, hey, I could do with some help, strategically, blah, blah, blah. And we were just sitting and brainstorming. And we said, okay, fine, whatever money we get at the end of the summer, we'll split it and, just do this as a team. And then one thing led to another. And, somewhere the Sindhi genes kind of kick in. And we said, if we're doing this together, then why not register this as a partnership firm? And the partnership firm kind of became an advertising agency. And I remember it was the 22nd or the 23rd of March 2008 when we were sitting, I remember I was sitting at home. It was about 10:15 in the night post dinner and just, flipping channels on the TV. And Pratik called in the night and he's like, I've got the name. The name is Foxymoron. And it just clicked. And I was like, where did this come from? And of course, that's a story by itself. And I'll let Pratik tell that story. And suddenly from becoming the kids who were looking for internships that summer, we became the kids who were actually handing out internships that summer because we had 3 or 4 live projects at the head of the summer getting in March, paying projects that were getting in, at the head of the summer in March. And we needed hands on deck to execute these. So instead of now looking for internships, we gave out internships to 6 of our friends and colleagues who were also in college with us at the time. Okay. And all of a sudden we had a work strength of 8 people being 19 years of age, not knowing what we're doing as far as running a business, running an agency, creative, whatever, not knowing what we're doing at all. The name by itself is a completely different story, but that's Pratik's specialty, so I won't take away from him since he came up with the name. I'll tag Pratik in to give you that story.
Yeah, Pratik. Thanks, Suveer. Go ahead, Pratik.
It was nothing, right? It was like how you normally brainstorm for a name. I was writing a few words in and around there. And then, like Suveer said, my then girlfriend, now wife, she said, why don't you think of oxymorons, right? And I was like, cool. So I put down the word oxymoron on my piece of paper and there was just an F somewhere. Like I can't even express how this chanced to be. And like I just read Foxymoron as one word. And it was almost like a eureka moment. I was like, dude, that makes so much sense. It's an oxymoron on its own. It's fun, it's quirky. And I think it was just that you knew that you had it. And with a name, it's like that, right? Like when you get it, you know you have it. And people are very intrigued by the name. The name gave us a very good head start because everybody was very intrigued. What are these, young 19-year-old kids doing with an advertising agency and, what are they starting? And like Suveer said, there was a lot of keen interest from people we were studying with, right? They were facing similar experiences. like we had faced in the past, and they were very keen to, help us on this journey, which was great because it was almost like college didn't get over that summer. Like we got a few live projects and that's it. It was a lot of fun. Great days.
On The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com, I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla. We'll take a little break and we'll be back very, very quickly. Don't go anywhere. And we are back on The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com, our podcast series. I am your host and friend Pavan Chawla. Today, I have with me Suveer Bajaj and Pratik Gupta of Foxymoron. So you want to give me the important milestones in terms of, you all started in, I think, March 2008. And then from there, when did you get your first big client? But then I believe there was one big setback for you youngsters, one of you all still in his teens in the early days with some t-shirts order. I'm saying your entire story is one of fire in the gut, I think, and belief and persistence. Just give me very quickly, a back of the chronology of the whole thing, starting with that unfortunate setback that I think made you stronger.
One of the first businesses that we ever got on board was to print t-shirts, right? It was for a campaign that was being run for somebody, so we printed all of those t-shirts. It was a considerable sum of money because we had started with a capital of 64,000 and I think they didn't have the money to pay us. We had the t-shirts lying with us. And so I think while persistence has been very synonymous with our journey, I think the advantage or the reason that we've been able to be this persistent is also because of the kind of partnership that we've had over so many years. Because it's very easy to look back and say, hey, we've been so consistent for so long. But there have been times where, you just feel gutted. You don't know what to do. Retrospectively, 1,16,000 rupees looks like, not a problem at all. But if you think about it, we eroded almost 2 times our capital at that point in time. And the advantage was that we were a couple of us who just wanted to pick each other up, right? And say, it's okay, right? It doesn't matter. If that's the case, then we'll figure out how to do the rest. So that was the first ever big project that we took up. I think the first big client that we ever won that put us on the track and also gave us belief that we can do this, right? Because like Suveer said, none of us came from an advertising background. So the industry was new, right? It's not like any one of us worked in the advertising background before this. I remember, us trying to figure out what a retainer means, right? Forget trying to structure a retainer. We didn't even know what a retainer meant. And the first big client that we got, I think, was PVR Pictures. And,
that's right.
And it was on a freelance website that the marketing head back then called Ranjan Singh, he picked us up from a freelance website. And I promise you, Pavan, when I'm saying this, I don't even remember feeding in our information on this freelance website. But we were there and we received a call saying, why don't you guys come and meet us? And genuinely, if you ask me back then, did we know what we were giving as services? No, we didn't know. We went with one of my partners, sister's portfolio, saying that, yes, this is the kind of work that we can do. And I remember he briefed us on making a couple of posters for his upcoming films. And in all confidence, we said, yes. And we walked out of that meeting and we were like, boss, कौन सा सॉफ्टवेयर यूज होता है ये पोस्टर्स बनाने के लिए? And the good part about this entire thing was that, we spent the next 2 weeks putting our head down, not only understanding the software, but finding the talent, trying to conceptualize what to do. So yes, it greatly helped us that we were able to convert the client with, however we were able to present ourselves, and it was great in that sort of an aspect. But what really worked for us is that once we got the project in, and this is testimony to all of us as a group, right? We gave it 300% to ensure that we did what was absolutely right for the clients. Thanks to that, I think we had PVR for almost 5 years. And that's the first big client that we had.
Super. Wonderful. Let me bring Suveer in, Pratik. Suveer, tell me about the crunched up chronology, just the major milestones on your way to growth. I think by the time you all reached 2013, which was probably only 5 years after you started, You all were already at 25 crores or something in terms of...
That's right.
So just tell me about the whole thing, and also tell me how much you sold.
Sure. So major milestones for us, 2009, bagged our first few corporate clients. There was PVR. Very quickly, there was the Cadbury Group, which was via Madison. There was the L'Oreal Group, which was our first, large independent advertiser. 10, 11, 12, there was a lot of running around the countryside, a lot of educating clients about digital, and a lot of personal networks. My elder sister's friend, my, friend's sister's friend, that kind of network. 13 was a milestone year for us. We set up an office in Gurgaon. That was our first office outside of Bombay. In 2010, we had moved out of the small office that we had started out in Fort into our first large office in Low Parel in Sunmill compound. 13, we got our first office outside of Bombay. So that was a significantly large milestone for us in Gurgaon. I remember we were servicing Bacardi. Bacardi's headquarters was up there, and we weren't able to manage this relationship remotely. In 2012, we realized that we should put the flag in the north. So 13 was a big milestone for us setting up the office. 14 actually had two milestones for us. Of course, since you asked, 12 onwards, the M&A buzz kind of started with the digital agencies in India, and 6 big transactions went down between 12 and 14. And 14 is when we kind of got close to advertising holding company called WPP, and in conversation with them. The end of 14 also saw another milestone for us. We had a partner leave our organization, for his personal reasons, etc. So 2 milestones really in 14. Through 15 and 16, there was a lot of pulling our socks up, getting our product really right. We repositioned the brand. We rebranded ourselves in 2015 with Foxymoron having a new avatar and new brand to market, and spruced up our service offerings. In 2016, we had another milestone with another partner leave us because he had a death in the family, etc. But 2016 was also exciting for us because we set up our third office in Bangalore, and that was a very, very big milestone for us because we did wonderfully well in Bangalore over the last few years and secured some significantly large businesses. I remember we used to manage the SAB Miller business over there, very quickly gained traction and won the business on Ather Energy, which is India's leading two-wheeler electric motorcycle, and then very quickly secured the business on IKEA and now Amazon, and got some major success in Bangalore with the office over there. Over 17 and 18, there was a lot of, reinvention of the Foxymoron business. What we did is we spun off a agency-owned production house called Rabbit Hole, which did wonderfully well for itself. And we now have a full-fledged production house that we built up over 2017 and 18. In 18, we spun off a creative technology company called Phosphine, which is headquartered in Bangalore, that does cool stuff in the space of AR, VR, ML, AI, image recognition, voice, that kind of stuff. In 19, we set up a consultancy company that works with startups on an incubation acceleration model. In 20, we're in the process of setting up a media company called Mammoth Media, which is going to take us, in a completely different direction in terms of media ownership. And over the course of the last 3 years, also spent a lot of time, or I should say 2 years, spent a lot of time in terms of reorganization of the business. Lots of business wins. I'll let, of course, Pratik talk about the milestone business wins for us over the course of the last 13 years. But from an infrastructure standpoint, from a corporate standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, I think this is the concise summary of the run-up that we've had over the last 12 odd years. Of course, last month actually, 10th of May is our work anniversary, our work birthday. We celebrated 12 years and now officially gone into the teen years. So that's, I think, the biggest milestone for us going into the teen years.
Wonderful for a company that was started by teenagers. Amazing. Yeah, go ahead. You were saying something. I interrupted you, Suveer. Sorry.
Saying just ready to put on our big boy pants now as we enter the teenage years and really own, now we're not the new kids on the block. We haven't been for a while, but now we're not kids on the block as well. We're all in our 30s, both in our 30s, and really enjoying the new avatar that we've individually taken as well as the organization's taking with the new shape of Foxy and with Zoo and the host of companies that we've been working with.
Wonderful. On The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com, I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla. We'll take a little break and we'll be back very, very quickly. Don't go anywhere. And we are back on The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com, our podcast series. I am your host and friend Pavan Chawla. Today, I have with me Suveer Bajaj and Pratik Gupta of Foxymoron. So Pratik, some of your memorable campaigns, I can instantly recall Aerial Share the Load, Maybelline New York's The Kiss Song, HBO's Suicide Squad on WhatsApp. What was that about? And any other interesting campaigns that you want to talk about? Both, Suveer, you can pitch into. So Pratik, take it away.
There's been some phenomenal work we've done over the last 12 years, right? I think we've, as an agency, been trying to be at the intersection of, creative media, data and tech. And we've, done a lot of these campaigns where we've been able to achieve all of these milestones that we've actually set out for ourselves. To give you context of, of one of the campaigns that you mentioned, which was, HBO Suicide Squad. I think, the brief for the campaign was very simple, right? There is no more appointment viewing on television, right? Like there is no more prime time. People are moving into an ecosystem where they are watching content when they want, where they want, and how they want it, right? With coming off OTT platforms, I think that competition has taken away this concept of appointment viewing. And to ensure that people knew when Suicide Squad was launching, we went into the audience that really was a diehard fan of the entire movie. And we created for the first time a WhatsApp integrated bot ecosystem. I think when we did this campaign, there was no way of even having proper business accounts because WhatsApp had not rolled out business accounts formally. And we were using some automated softwares along with a lot of manual intervention. We did a 8-day or a 9-day, I think over almost about a 1.5-2 week campaign for getting a lot more people onto this to see the premiere of the film on HBO. And we were able to gather over 20,000 voice notes because people were interacting with us with the kind of content that we were creating. People were sending us sketches of themselves on top of their own images. They were using the picture mode to create Suicide Squad versions of themselves. They were we were sending GIFs and memes, and we were having a conversation like we were a part of the cast with these people, and a lot of people seemed to really, really, really enjoy it. So a lot of work around newer technology, newer conversation pieces, and this was based on an upcoming platform. I mean, back in the day when this campaign happened in 2018, which everybody was talking about, but nobody had kind of conquered, right? So for the industry to see that this is the benchmark of what you can do in terms of, reaching out to a community on WhatsApp, this was a great campaign that we did with HBO.
Okay. And I think then perhaps it was probably the first time that somebody could even measure engagement on dark social. Is that correct?
We manually measured it, honestly. There's no tool to verify it, or there's no tool to measure it even today. But yes, we did measure it, and obviously we can't tell you the number of people who shared it inside WhatsApp once the message was sent to them, and there is no way to measure that.
Sure.
But in terms of interaction and interactivity, yes, we did manually measure a lot of its impact, and the numbers were phenomenal, right? Like to get 20,000 voice notes, back in 2018, I think when we did this campaign, was a revelation to us as well. So, yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Suveer, any other campaigns that come to mind?
Yeah, I think more recently, we've been looking at some certain industries that we haven't looked at before. We've always known to be the creative guys on the block, done a lot of good work for FMCG, consumer durables. I think the last few years has been very, the learning curve has been superb. We've really learned new categories like BFSI, for instance, which is a category that we're not historically known to have owned. But last 3 or 4 years, I think we've really killed it in the category. And, one of the accounts that's particularly close to both Pratik and me is a campaign that we did for a consortium called Aditya Birla Capital, as they organized all their BFSI companies into one large umbrella brand called Aditya Birla Capital, and took on the very mammoth task of demystifying the concept of money to the common man, and I think that was a very breakthrough campaign, both for us as individuals, for, us as an agency, obviously for the advertiser Birla Group themselves, because the insight came from the fact that money is a very intimidating subject for the common man. When you start talking about SIPs and mutual funds, most people don't even know what you're talking about. Maybe you and I can have, a 3-hour conversation on, the market and on mutual funds, but the common man gets very intimidated when you talk to him about money, and it's a very intimidating subject. And they went down to demystify this entire subject for the common man. And obviously this is this is category creation really in that regard, and kind of taking the onus to put, financing options and protecting options with the insurance products and the loan products all under one umbrella to kind of make this one-stop destination and create a single brand of money for the consumer. And I think this has been a really, fruitful experience for us as an agency, and massive learning curve. Worked with some great people. I think we're very, very thankful that we've had some lovely people to work with on the client side who've really contributed to our growth as an agency, as well as the learning curve of all the people in the ecosystem. So I think we've been very thankful to learn new industries.
What was the basic, say, one sentence strategy on the Aditya Birla?
The one line for the campaign simplistically was one money, right? It was one umbrella brand, one KYC, one destination for the customer, one relationship with money. Whether it's your investment needs, your financing needs, your protection needs, it was one money effectively. So one relationship for any customer, any consumer of the Aditya Birla Group in terms of their BFSI products, and one window into money.
I think the main route then you probably took there was to explain to people about how it works perhaps, and the importance of dealing with somebody really credible, perhaps.
Absolutely. I think it starts off with really introspecting what your relationship with money is, because everyone has a very different relationship with money depending on where they are in their own personal life cycle as well, and what their goals are over a period of time. So it starts off by really exploring your own relationship with money and then talking about how the right partner can help you achieve your goal.
And what is your criteria for accepting a mandate? I guess maybe a good partner and ability to pay and a good history of working or whatever else. Apart from that, what kind of mandates excite you, and what is a deal breaker?
So Pavan, I think, even ahead of all of this, I think the first thing that really checkbox our mandate is that we want to work with good people. And I think this has been at the ethos of our culture as an organization. And when I say good people, I mean good individuals, good human beings, And I'm sure in your careers as well as ours, and of course yours, far more experienced than ours, you've come across a varied bunch of individuals that you've seen on different sides of the table as you've interacted with them professionally. And I think the first thing that we put our flag into the ground saying is that we want to work with good people. We want respectful relationships where we are respected as business partners and we respect our clients as opinion leaders, thought leaders, market leaders in their respective industries. And that's really been at the center of us choosing to work with clients, choosing to work with stakeholders, I should say, across the board. Of course, back in the day, we did have industry expertise. We were known to be the kids on the block who really hacked the beauty space, the makeup space, the fashion space. Did a lot of work in the F&B and the hospitality industry from 2008. Lifestyle leading up to 2013. So there was a natural tendency to pick categories that we did really well. So that became a very early stage filter. Now, of course, that's not a filter. Like I said, really expanded our repertoire in that, in that regard. Post 13, 14, I think as the agency found, legs, got wings, started growing, started moving in 5 or 6 different directions. Of course, we then wanted to work with market leaders in their respective industries so that we could do industry shaping work, game-changing work that really solidifies their position in the industry. And later, actually, one of the key filters for choosing to partner with businesses became, where businesses really started respecting us as business partners and not as an agency. And that gave us the opportunity to really create business impact. We were known to be, or had known to be, guys who brought the best creative onto the block. And very quickly, we evolved our offering and we were able to build a very robust media and search and technology practice into the mix to complement the creative suite of services that we brought. And we realized that, because we sat at this very unique intersection of content, media, data, and tech, we were now able to start catering solutions that were actually able to bring business impact. So we were able to have conversations with clients, about the ROI that our campaigns were able to drive, with them on specific business problems, which are not just sales related or activation related or trials related, but work with them on risk mitigation strategies, on operational and process strategies that really impacted both top line and bottom line. And I think one of the key filters today for us to work with clients is people that really encourage this style of partnership. There'll be a dime of a dozen clients who are happy to cut you a big check for you to do funky work or creative work, quote unquote. But if that work for us is not fulfilling in terms of adding long-term value or value creation to those clients, then how sticky is that relationship going to be, right? Because you got a marketing manager who likes you or your AM guys or your work, and he's there today, he's gone tomorrow, and they're happy to, the new guy who comes in is happy to bring an agency of his choice on board. But if you're able to actually create value for an organization, either internally or externally, that's when you actually become a strategic business partner to, the clients that you end up working with. And I think initially in our sussing out phase of, choosing to work with clients, unfortunately, we've reached a stage, over the last few years where we do get a lot of inbound leads, and we can be slightly selective in terms of which ones we decide to service in that regard. I think this point acts as a very big decider for us in terms of the ability for us to create value in the clients, giving us the opportunity to create value for them, and then recognizing that and recognizing us as business partners for them.
Excellent. Wonderful. That was the voice of Suveer Bajaj, and before that you heard Pratik Gupta, both of them from Foxymoron, who lead the company and have done so brilliantly, scintillatingly well. You're listening to them on The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla. We'll take a little break and we'll be back very, very quickly. Don't go anywhere. And we are back on The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com, our podcast series. I am your host and friend Pavan Chawla. Today, I have with me Suveer Bajaj and Pratik Gupta of Foxymoron. Pratik, tell me, how do you manage client expectations? The first thing is setting them. But just walk me through the process. When a new client comes on, signs up.
I think that's a great question, and a large part of the success of clients is to actually set the expectation right from the beginning, right? And the daunting task that we actually undertake is that we put the pressure back on the client to say that, listen, we want to make business impact, right? Like, we don't necessarily want to have a conversation with you about how many posts we can make on social media and what that post is going to do. Because in today's day and age, if you're not putting money behind any sort of content that you're creating, right, legitimately the agency and the client are the only people seeing it and liking it. So there is no value in basically saying I'm going to do 50 posts, 60 posts, 70 posts, because that's a social media conversation, and that's not necessarily a conversation that we actually want to have, right? So, right, like Suveer said, at the onset, we're picking briefs where we can start to make business impact. As soon as the client signs on with us, we almost try to say that let's restart, right? Like, let's restart what you know and what is the value that we can add through the 7 organizations that we have under Zoom Media. So we almost do like a digital refresh for all of the clients. So I mean, like, once the client comes on board, I think we have a workshop. The workshop is to introduce them to all the possibilities on digital and what we can do with the business, and also get a very, very deep understanding of all the business functions that they have, and also what are the objectives, what are the business objectives that they have, whether it's in terms of sale, whether it's in terms of awareness, whether it's in terms of share of voice in each one of their categories. Once we have this exchange of information, I think we come back with a very robust plan on what we think we should be doing, from a cleanup strategy point of view in the first 2 to 3 months, because you're only able to accelerate once you have your house in order. So I think we take the first 2 or 3 months to get the house in order, and then we take it from there and start to scale campaigns and start to scale business ROI. And the pressure we put on ourselves to actually be responsible for not only the creative output but also the business output is the pressure that we enjoy, and is the value that the client sees in a partnership with us. So that's the process once we've onboarded the client.
Great. And what is the kind of attrition rate you've had? I know that digital is such an incestuous place. Somebody walks out, takes the client somewhere. It depends on what relationship you have with the client. But in the bigger, larger scheme of things, what's been the attrition rate like on clients and on employees?
Actually, we've had very, very long-lasting client relationships. I think with L'Oreal, I think L'Oreal has been our biggest and longest client relationship. Out of our 12 years of existence, we've been working with L'Oreal for over 11 and a half years. And that's almost unheard of in the digital ecosystem, right? Because the industry is 12 and a half, 13 years old. So, we've had that for the longest period of time. A lot of our clients have reached the 5-year mark, and
Super.
And the clients have basically also led us into forming different verticals because of the need of digital evolving from a breadth point of view.
That's where I'm going to come in with my next question on Zoom Media. When you started it, what it is all about, what's happening, what it's aiming for.
So what we've done is, we've started a holding company called Zoom Media. The conversation started, I think, almost 24 to 30 months ago, where we understood that, while digital is about the depth of what you're doing inside the digital ecosystem for a client. It's also about the breadth of services and the breadth of offerings that digital is now becoming integral for brands for, right? Like, so whether it is technology, whether it is data, whether it is the ability to consult people on the digital ecosystem. So we came up with a holding company structure called Zoo Media. The intent of Zoo Media was to be able to develop this breadth for our clients and to be the preferred partner that all clients would like to work with, and try and cover as much ground for this breadth as possible. So inside of Zoo Media, we obviously have Foxymoron, which is our flagship agency, right? So that's where we do a lot of the digital creative, the planning, and the performance marketing and media side of the business for a host of our clients. We have the Rabbit Hole, which is a full service content, production company, where we basically do everything from pre-production to post-production to actual writing and conceptualizing. One of our biggest clients in this space is Netflix. So we create a lot of original IPs. We do a lot of their, title work in terms of all the new titles that are being launched in India, and obviously across our entire client roster. We're doing a lot of digital video content pieces. We're doing a lot of television, TV series, basically, for a whole host of our clients. It's one of our fastest growing agency verticals. That's the Rabbit Hole. We have an agency called Polin, which does a whole host of influencer work. So it not only does influencers from a data point of view for brands, but it also does represent a lot of influencers in this digital ecosystem, because we're working with influencers to create business plans which are sustainable for influencers as well, right? So we have the ability to look at data from a very deep point of view and basically tell them what their audience is looking at, what their audience is not looking at. And obviously, we have the ability to create content. So that's the second agency that we have. I'll let Suveer take you through the rest of Zoo Media's.
Yeah, Suveer, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So, like I mentioned earlier, we set up a creative technology company called Phosphine, which is based in Bangalore, that does creative tech, which is in the space of augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning, NLP, image recognition, voice, that kind of stuff. Future-facing tech, essentially. A lot of R&D, a lot of research for tomorrow. Very critical in today's day and age. In that regard, we partnered with a technology company to make our technology offering slightly more robust, which we've now brought into the network. And that's really the position that Zoo really holds, is building a mini network for itself. So we partnered with a technology company called Noesis Technologies, which we've now brought into the network, that's working with us to build capabilities on marketing tech and ad tech. Of course, we've got creative tech with Phosphine. And now I think the new narrative that we've kind of picked up is marketing automation, digital transformation, really becoming the name of the game in that regard. Last year, put some building blocks down to set up a consultancy company that works with young startups. We were both startup guys at the end of the day. We both built our organization down from scratch and love working with young founders, very spirited individuals, of course, who may not necessarily want to work with the agency, which has now become, big budget agency, etc., has its own protocols, etc., but work with young founders in hybrid incubation acceleration model, and really been enjoying working with young founders, building young businesses from scratch, where we're working directly with founders, getting a free hand to take some large strategic management decisions with them, etc. This year, setting the building blocks for putting a media company down called Mammoth Media, which is now going to be a media owner in the space of editorial publishing, in the space of long format content creation, launching a couple of our own podcasts as well over the course of this year.
That's good. Wonderful.
One first very quickly actually. So yeah, really, it's kind of become a network of its own. And, initially in the early days, this was a corporate structuring ploy. And, of course, it served a standard mitigation strategy, because the big problem that agencies have, I mean, you've seen this in front of your face several times as well, in front of your eyes. A couple of years ago, we were servicing L'Oreal, we were servicing Hindustan Unilever, we were servicing Procter & Gamble. And you can understand the amount of conflict that creates for an agency. And, with the number of brands being blacked out, a number of categories being blacked out. And so we had those structuring issues, and we thought that this would kind of help. Of course, we got a lot of key talent in from across the industry, and, we needed to give them a little bit of breadth in terms of movement and create career paths from them. And that's where the network idea was really born. But I think today, the network has kind of become a platform for us. And, this is what I tell anyone when we really explain the dream and the vision to them, that we're fully cognizant of the fact that our industry today is built on collaborations, right? We don't believe that one guy can do everything, or one guy should even do everything on his own, because it's not his core capability and skill set. But the network for us really is a platform and gives us the opportunity to work with some very unique and very talented individuals around the world And the platform allows us to evangelize and enable these opportunities for us. For instance, we're bringing a global data company into India, and we'll talk about that more probably on another episode, which fits into the ecosystem really well, because big data is very much part of our narrative as we build e-commerce capabilities and performance and programmatic capabilities, but doesn't necessarily sit inside the agency. We've become very prudent to define what the agency does, what the production house does, what the influencer management company does, and it's not a one-size-fits-all solution anymore. So the network has really become a platform for us to evangelize opportunities that fit well into the ecosystem, but maybe not necessarily into the erstwhile definition of the agency. And that's really the life of Zoo Media, so as to speak.
That was the voice of Suveer Bajaj, and before that you heard Pratik Gupta, both of them from Foxymoron, who lead the company and have done so brilliantly, scintillatingly well. You're listening to them on The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla. We'll take a little break and we'll be back very, very quickly. Don't go anywhere. And we are back on The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com, our podcast series. I am your host and friend Pavan Chawla. Today, I have with me Suveer Bajaj and Pratik Gupta of Foxymoron. Nowadays, people sometimes seem to think that it's about technology. Yes, it is technology, but ultimately it's great content and its interface with, or its impact on, its acceptance by and relevance to the people that it reaches. And tech actually helps you refine and even place the content beautifully. And, I think it gives you a lot of inputs to really go back to the drawing table and strategize for the future. What is your view, Suveer, of, I believe that third-party cookies are absolutely on their way out. In fact, as long back as 2 years ago, word started that third-party cookies are going to die and you have to have first-party cookies. So what is the impending, and I'm convinced about the impending, don't know when, but the impending demise of third-party cookies in the digital marketers toolkit? How is that going to impact digital marketing?
So I think, very pertinent conversation for us to be having today. And, as you rightly said, I think the onus on the digital marketer to become a first party data collector himself is really now on us as an industry to champion and to kind of own as a narrative. Of course, third party cookies had their own set of challenges, which I'm sure you've explored with guests, in more detail, and, not to spend too much time on that. But I think as marketers, it's making us so much more accountable and so much more responsible for the campaigns that we run with our advertisers in this regard. If you look at, like you said, 24 months ago, right? If you look at the narrative of programmatic agencies that were able to in-house this capability at a very early stage in the India's journey of programmatic, I of course won't compare us to the rest of the world because we may be half a step behind, or at least to the West where we may be half a step behind. And very quickly, agencies bringing in proprietary tech or partnering with tech companies to build out DMPs on their own and to start really owning first-party data in that regard. And this happened obviously it happens multi-tier on the supply side, on the demand side, happens across the board in that regard. And how the ecosystem really stitches itself well together so that a lot of first-party data actually ends up talking to each other in that regard and validating the narrative as we go ahead. Obviously, the narrative as far as fraud is concerned, as far as poor reporting is concerned, of course, with slightly more lower-hanging fruit in terms of just general performance is concerned, started becoming a large issue as over the last, I would say, 36 months, give or take, digital advertising spend has also increased year on year by anywhere between 25 to 33% compounded year on year over the last 3 years. Everyone started looking at this also with a microscope, and, as the spends increase, people start asking more questions. As the questions increase, the accountability increases. As the accountability increases, it's a chain of command in that regard. So I think as marketers, as an agency, we're really excited about it because it gives us the onus to start having deeper conversations with clients. It gives us the onus to be more accountable for the campaigns that we run for them. Also, it definitely impacts performance, and I think that's really the first drop in the ocean, saying that if as a first party data collector myself, if I'm able to impact performance, yes, it might be X% more expensive, but does it yield Y% more ROAS? It definitely does. And I think that's really the name of the game for us today. And in fact, with the tech company that we spoke about, that we brought into the mix, Noesis, and just to plug in the example, doing some great work on affiliate marketing and social commerce, where we've become first-party data collectors of social and working in collaboration with the Goliaths like Facebook to really build a first-party data ecosystem, that sits right in between a platform and between a brand or an advertiser, with us being able to evangelize that as a ad tech company, has really also been a big differentiator in these early stages when we go and pitch to clients. So excited to see what, how this narrative kind of rolls out. But you're absolutely right. We're putting fuel on the fire right now, and there's only one direction we can go in.
And what is your outlook for the digital marketing agencies that do not really have first-party data? I mean, you have a long history of active work with across platforms with a lot of clients, and I'm sure that you also have your own first-party data so far. But what about the others? How is this really going to hit, and that's the word I use very consciously, the digital marketing space, at least in terms of and for the smaller operators?
So not to really get into the fraud side of things, but just to talk about the performance side of things, I think and I won't really call this the problem of agility, because I think anyone who's in this space has their eyes open enough to be agile to realize the need of the hour to evolve their offering. But I would call it more an access problem, because to become a first-party data collector, you also need the right access, and you also need the right infrastructure, you also need the right technology, etc. So I would call this more an access problem. So I think for businesses that lack the access today and therefore maybe lack the scale today as well, they would be comfortable serving solutions via third-party data providers, and therefore their advertisers also won't be asking them that challenging questions. But I think as long as their eyes are open to realize that from an evolution perspective, they need to be agile to evolve. If not today, then maybe tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then maybe day after tomorrow, in the next, whatever it may be, 12 months. I think as long as your eyes are open to the idea that you need to be evolving and you're heading in the right direction, it's fine today if an advertiser does not ask you difficult questions because their business does not depend on it. Because it also kind of feeds into what role digital plays in the larger advertising ecosystem, and what role advertising plays in the larger, brand ecosystem for any particular advertiser. Scale of things respectively. And for a host of advertisers that may contribute to a small percentage of the industry today, but is serviced by a significantly large, percentage of the industry. When we started, I think we were like the 9th pure digital agency back then. There were a few guys before us, the Watt Consultants, Interactive Avenues, etc. Today, there are like some 750 digital agencies on the landscape that you and I may not have necessarily crossed paths with over the last few years. And in volume, it's a very, very large number of agencies, but in value, they service a significantly small percentage of the industry. And I think that's their own learning curve, getting to, work. And I guess a lot of this education will also come working with partners, working with platforms, working with maybe other agencies, working with tech companies, with media companies, to eventually build the narrative and to start owning this, on their own. But maybe if it doesn't impact the advertiser, then you don't have a reason to be stressed about it today. And the minute you want to be relevant and, up your game a bit, I guess, pull your socks up and start running the race with the rest of the industry.
So a lot of the work that you do, Suveer and Pratik, I'm generalizing, so I could be totally incorrect, but a bigger part must be on the B2C space. What are the B2B specialist services that you provide?
I'll take that, right? Like, it segues into what Suveer said, right? Like, today, the available data sets in terms of market intelligence is so high, right? Like, to give you context, can we reach out to people if we're in the construction or, like the building ecosystem, right? Which usually has a marketplace. We're able to connect with people on the marketplace side of things, right? So we can connect with owners who are, sitting in these shops who are very, very difficult to usually connect with because, they're running retail spaces and therefore are spending about 12 to 13 hours inside the retail space ecosystem. We have technologies which can target those people on a regular and ongoing basis. For a client recently called Oriental Tiles, which is Gurgaon-based tile manufacturer, they had an exhibition in one of the European countries before the lockdown, and we were able to target people who specifically walked in and out of that exhibition center, and were able to land them about, I think, 4 or 5 big-sized clients and deals. Obviously, we do a lot of employer branding across a lot of the B2B platforms that are available and are existing. And I think more importantly, what we also do with these clients is that we start to create a B2B sort of a network, right? Like, so for a lot of again, coming back to Orient Well, to create an ecosystem of interior designers and architects and, everything from there, because it's at the end of the day, it's a community that you need to tap into. So we do a lot of these, closed door community building sort of activities, because B2C is easy, right? The consumer is out there. We live in a population of 1.3 billion people. The consumer is always going to be out there. But B2B is very, very specific. It's very, very targeted from a data point of view, from a communication point of view, and it eventually moves into building a community of people who are interested in you, whether from an employer point of view or whether from a business point of view. And we've done enough for them. And yes, we do a lot of listening exercises, consumer facing as well as business facing. We do a lot of response exercises, which are consumer facing and business facing. And it all eventually comes into a very robust B2B offering.
Suveer, do you want to add to that? What are the purely B2B kind of offerings that you give to corporates?
Sure, absolutely. I think, as we work with corporates and corporate brands, I think stakeholder management becomes an important part of our jobs as their digital agency, because corporates do speak to a variety of different stakeholders and not just consumers in that regard, when it comes to shareholders, when it comes to existing employees, when it comes to future employees. And we've done some very interesting work in that regard as well. We've done a lot of employee activation campaigns across the board for companies like Aditya Birla, for companies like Mahindra, for companies like L'Oreal, for companies like Levers. And I think that becomes a very big part of corporate branding from an employer branding perspective, whether it's activation of college campus students through the right channels, through workshops, through quizzes, and which eventually get them employment opportunities, to activation of different stakeholder groups to attract say investors for the startups that we work with. And I told you about the startup incubation. I think the most interesting thing for us when we work with corporates is the activation of a variety of different stakeholder groups, and how we can therefore disseminate our service offerings via these various different channels to attract these stakeholders. I think that's a very big learning for us, because typically as a consumer marketing company, understanding consumer insights, etc., becomes back of hand. But this is really exciting for us, learning completely new games altogether.
Nice. And if I were to ask you for your advice on what should marketing and PR and digital team of a good corporate do for enhancing, say, CEO or CXO thought leadership?
So this is actually a profile that we've worked on a couple of times before. For certain corporates, we end up picking up their CEO's digital presence. And I would answer that question as a digital first answer, since that's where our expertise lies. I think the first thing that people need to realize is that they need to have presence on digital. And presence means across the board. It doesn't mean, some people are active on a channel that they personally believe in. But I think presence is kind of across the board, because it cuts through both your corporate personality as well as your individual, your personal life as well. Right? Which could start on Twitter, which becomes a very vociferous platform to converse with industry leaders and become a thought leader and establish your point of view and kind of become an opinion leader in that regard, down to LinkedIn, where you become part of your organization's employer branding activities as well as stakeholder management activities, down to slightly more relatable profiles where people start looking at you as a human being, where you start talking about your family and your values and, really define who you are as a person. And of course, today with lockdown and the situation kind of having spiraled in 5 different directions, the concept of knowledge leadership, through webinars, seminars, online has become so popular, which have kind of which have been thrown open to people to be logging in from all over the world, and really sets the narrative nicely for establishing yourself amongst your peers as an industry leader in that regard, and really finding a voice as an individual, which kind of marries with the larger organization voice.
And what are the values and qualities both you gentlemen look for in, say, employees? And you told me about partners, and the most important thing basically across the board should really be good human beings, like Suveer you mentioned. So, but if you look for, what's a deal breaker in anyone who wants to come and work for you?
Our value systems, Pavan, to tell you, are very, very cool. Our value systems for our organization are called ICE Cube. That's ICEEE, ICE3, effectively ICE Cube. And effectively, they stand for integrity, which is the I. C is creationism, the ability to create something from scratch. And then we've got 3 E's after that. endurance, excellence, and empathy. So ICEE or ICE Cube. And this is the value ecosystem of the Zoom Media framework.
Wonderful. Really nice. I love the way that you probably, I'm sure you all first went about identifying the values and then seeing how nicely to iterate it. So really catchy, very nice indeed, and very meaningful. Excellent. And what about diversity in the culture of your organization? How do you go about trying to ensure that? Or is it that, hey, I just need the best people for any role? Gender is secondary because ultimately the most important thing is giving great value to my clients. And if it's a lady who can do it, most welcome. If it's a gentleman who can do it, most welcome. Is that the way you look at it?
I would say more than diversity, which I know has become a big topic of conversation, more from in the governance circles, etc. I think it's more inclusiveness, right? And if I have to say, do I have an Ethiopian and do I have a Lithuanian working in my organization? No. Do I have a marine biologist working in my organization? Yes, right? And that's really our mantra for diversity. But I think we better cap it as inclusiveness, saying that ours is an inclusive ecosystem that includes absolutely everyone. And diversity comes as first nature to us, not even second nature to us. So it's not really a governance problem for us. It's not really a culture or a values problem for us because it's first nature to us. We've grown up in diverse ecosystems from the first day and learned to accept people, and not only to accept but to include people into our ecosystem. So for us, I think it's a spirit of inclusiveness as opposed to diversity.
Wonderful. So Suveer, what is the elevator pitch for Foxymoron?
The elevator pitch for Foxymoron is Foxymoron. That's it. We are really, really happy today that we've reached a place in our lives today where the brand has sold itself, And in fact, we were just chatting about this last night, and sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for, the journey that we've come through over the last 12 years. In fact, we just had a very meaty conversation on this last night over a couple of hours in terms of, what this brand really means to the industry or to the world outside, and never having given ourselves enough credit for it because we are literally, the brand is us and we are the brand. It's like we become intertwined amongst each other, but it's very heartwarming, and we spoke about our diversification strategy, starting, these new businesses and partnering with new organizations literally around the world. And I thought about this. I racked my brains about this very aggressively because over the last 24 months, we've taken a lot of big steps in terms of trying to partner with individuals, trying to bring global organizations into India. And I thought, what is the elevator pitch? What am I going to say when I get 30 seconds of that CEO's time? And the elevator pitch was in 2008, a bunch of friends and I started an organization called Foxymoron. And I saw a smile on the face on the other side of the Zoom call or the other face of the meeting or whatever. And I realized that's the elevator pitch. And it was so heartwarming in that regard that I think now that's become my elevator pitch. I don't know if Pratik has a different point of view on this.
Our elevator pitch is, for me at least, is the narrative that starts with Foxymoron and almost ends with Zoom Media as what we've been able to create. And when we're having these conversations, people are seeing how far out we are thinking about digital, and it's not reactive, right? Like, we're not creating services that we should have created 2 years ago. We're probably creating services that you didn't know you need, for the last 2 years, and it's now available to you. So that's our narrative, right? Like, we're a forward-thinking network. You need to partner with the network because the network is what you need and not one agency inside the network.
We do have an elevator pitch for Zoom Media, which I'm happy to share with you. At Zoom Media, we say we are in the process of building a network which is the preferred partner to leading businesses around the world that maximizes potential by providing the most impactful solutions through future-ready products and services.
Wonderful, wonderful. So that was a really insightful and very informative conversation for me with the two young veterans, Suveer Bajaj and Pratik Gupta, co-founders of Foxymoron. It's thanks to their wonderful efforts that Foxymoron in itself, this one word, has become an elevator pitch, as Suveer just mentioned so very correctly, and I completely agree with him. Thank you, Suveer. Thank you, Pratik, for being part of this conversation and this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. It was extremely insightful for me. Any thoughts on Mediabrief.com and the Master's Voice and your experience during this conversation?
Thank you so much, Pavan, for having us. We've had a lovely morning chatting with you and a lovely time sharing our story with you and all the listeners. And we do hope you the best of luck and all the success with the podcast, all the various different business opportunities, and would love to partner, collaborate whenever the opportunity presents itself.
Thank you, Suveer.
Thanks, Pavan, for having us. I think it was really fun, going back in time and trying to just rethink of the days that have gone by. I think in this world today, I don't think we spend enough time, thinking about the things that have gone by. So it was really fun to have done this after a really long time. And thanks for having us, and all the best for what you're doing. I think it's great that you're able to put a platform together which kind of helps and educates people about what's happening in this media verse, and it's difficult to capture the breadth of it. And all the best in being able to help people understand the breadth of it, and please continue doing it. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much indeed, both of you. I've always been a big fan of yours. I remember meeting you all in your office in Lower Parel in the very, very early months when you all shifted there. And since then, I have really kept, I must say, not very middle of the road, but very inclined towards Foxymoron, look at what you all are doing, and have always been filled with pride at your accomplishments. I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much indeed for your time. So that was Foxymoron and its two wonderful co-founders, Suveer Bajaj and Pratik Gupta, with me, Pavan Chawla, your host and friend, on the Master's Voice podcast series, which is available on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and perhaps every other podcast platform that will take this podcast to at least 95% of listeners globally on an OTL, if I may say, opportunity to listen. Right, that's all I have time for in this episode. Thank you for having tuned into the Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla. Till the next time then, stay safe. Bye-bye.